You've arrived, so stay with this. Stay with this moment right now. Right now. It sounds ridiculous, but this is it. That was a meditation. At this point, your thoughts are probably fleeing to, I should watch another video, or I should do something different than what I'm doing right now. But meditation is the practice of awakening. And I wanted to do this video for a long time, mainly because I've been meditating for a long time. I've been meditating for about 1,000 hours now, and that has been done over a number of years, about a little more than 10 years now. So I've gotten to the conclusion, or arrived to the conclusion, that meditation doesn't need to be more than this. The anticipation, the momentarily awakening to what life is. What does this mean? Well, it means that you're no longer caught up in that thought stream of yours, that urge or craving or aversion to be somewhere else than now. Essentially, meditation is the disconnect from it. And yes, there is a lot of different practices that you can do. You can sit for a very long time, which we'll also get into later in this video. But my main goal for this video is for you to have these moments of awakening that are almost too short for you to even notice, because you just slip right into this thought stream again, which is human, which is the way our mind works. It's constantly trying to find the next thing for you to pursue or to get away from. Meditation is the ability to wake up. And you may ask, wake up from what? Well, wake up from the 70 to 150,000 thoughts you have every single day. These thoughts that, to great extent of them, you are unaware of. And to the ones that you are aware of, well, perhaps they aren't as healthy or as good as you would like them to be. Meditation is the ability to exist in the gap between this moment and the next. And I'll tell you what is in these two moments. The 8 worldly concerns, which are joy and pain, loss and gain, fame and shame, and praise and blame. This sounds like kind of a fluffy spiritual statement, but essentially this is how our brain works. This is how we go through life. This is how our world is engineered. You should pursue one, and you should avoid the other. You love joy, you dislike pain. You love fame, you dislike shame. You want gain, you don't want loss. The world we live in is tuned to this function. The way we act as individuals in this world is in pursuit of one and the avoidance of the other. And it's not to title either as good or bad. It's just the circumstances of life. But sometimes you don't need to react. The circumstances of how you feel right now may actually be okay, even if it's in a loss situation, or also if it's in a joyous situation. So as you go through this video with me, and I will introduce you how to meditate, but I want you to be aware at the moments where you suddenly wake up, because that's the practice. That is the practice you will aspire to achieve. And it's these small moments that compound over time and that become the meditative practice, the mindfulness, if you may. And it's also these moments that you will hopefully gain so frequently that you forget about them, because your life now is elevated beyond this constant reaction and aversion to the circumstances of your life. And I say all of this because this is a revelation that has come to me after 1,000 hours of formal meditation, right? So if you If you want to skip the 1,000 hours, which I'm not advocating you should, because formal practice, formal meditative practice is a good way to enhance these moments of awakening. But the real gain from meditation is this awakening. It's this awareness of you being alive without necessarily identifying with all the suffering and all the circumstances that you feel is dragging down your life to a condition that is much worse, because it's a function of your mind. It's much worse than how things actually are. So the guidance sentence, or the guiding statement of meditation, is to make you aware of how your world is and not as you think it is. Because it's the thinking that creates this aversion or desire, and aversion and desire that keeps us unable to appreciate this present moment. Now, that was a long introduction, and it was somewhat, how do you say, the personal perspective I've gotten to what I would have loved the teacher to tell me had I started to meditate. I have changed my perspective to meditation dramatically over the last 10 years. And it's the idea with this video is to allow you to see that even though you need to sit down and close your eyes and be calm and breathe and let your thoughts pass by, the output of meditation is this ability for you to disconnect from the needs and wants and cravings and aversions of your life. It's not to make you a passive observer of your life. It's not to remove you from what brings you value, but it is to allow you to exist this very moment and still work towards betterment of your life. And I think this is the big difference between, I guess you could say, the Buddha 2,500 years ago and the Buddha today, right? Buddha was just a normal guy, actually around my age as well. He was curious about how the sensation existed in his life. And my thesis is that if he was around today, he'd probably be a CEO of some company, of some health or personal development company, because his ability to teach has just accelerated with the way the world works. But the way the world works and the acceleration of our world is also why, at least I see the need for meditation to start in a much simpler frame. This frame of a singular moment of awakening, and then back to sleep, doing the things we do, and then another moment of awakening. And have these moments of awakening as frequent as possible. And the more frequent we can have these moments of awakening, the more we can tune into the way life is and our circumstances in it, and our ability to appreciate what we have, and then still work for whatever it is that we want, whatever it is that we desire for our loved ones. I think the idea of meditation is perhaps the oldest personal development, brain therapy that we've had since mankind, went from monkeys to the thinking man. And since then, our brain has actually not developed at the same rate as our high-tech society. So you'd be happy to know that obsessive thinking and the inability to feel happy in the moment it's not that new. It's perhaps the oldest condition of suffering known to man and woman. But of course, meditation has a practice to it, a formal practice. And I've called this video Your First Meditation because I want you, or my wish is, to invite you to try it in its most simple form. And its most simple form are these, wow, okay, I'm awake. These moments of awakening. But in order to induce these moments more frequently, formal practice is a good way to increase the chances of it occurring. And I say chances because, at least from my own experience, it wasn't until much later in my meditative practice that I started being aware of these awakening moments. And I've tried a number of different meditative practices, right? I've tried Vipassana, Samatha, non-dualistic meditation, transcendent meditation. And if these words do not mean anything to you, don't worry. It's just to say that there's a lot of different ways that you can meditate. There's a lot of different approaches to meditation, whether this be in a religious manner or whether this be non-religious. And so the trick here is to, well, explore. Just like you would find your favorite sport, perhaps even your favorite author. The need for you is to keep practicing, keep being an athletic individual, or keep reading, keep, indulging in books. And this is where your first meditation starts. It starts by recognizing that in order to get these moments of awakening, you have to practice the ability for you to observe your own mind. And that can be difficult. That can be very difficult because your own mind is a wild place. It's a wild west, if you may. And to start in that is like cleaning up, a room that is incredibly messy and just becomes messy every moment you're not cleaning it up. And part of the practice is to clean up, and part of the other practice is also to be okay with it being a mess. I think my first introduction to meditation was that as soon as my mind is cleared, I'll be good. I'll be okay, If it's organized up here, it'll be organized out there. And to my great surprise, it will never be organized up there. Because our thoughts will continue to introduce new things that you want to do or new things that you don't want to do. As I was a younger man, I was very fixated about women, about money, about the status I had. I had a great need, at least at that point, in order to be happy, to be recognized as some ideal version of me. And now I think I've gotten a different picture. Obviously, I still want to be loved, I still want to be cared for. But it does not necessarily need to mean that this current moment here is not good enough. Even if this current moment is difficult. And as every life in this world goes through at one point, you will go through an incredible, intense amount of suffering. You'll lose people you love. You'll feel betrayed. You'll come down with an incurable disease. Something bad will happen. And I'm not here to say that, if something bad happens, just be happy in the moment. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that when bad things happen, you gotta be able to count on your mind, on the presence you have in it. To not be consumed by grief, by despair, by depression, by things being extremely hard. And I think that might be the second output or the second benefit to meditation. First one is this awakening from the thought stream, from the 8 worldly concerns. And the second thing is that, you can count on yourself because you've spent time observing what goes on in your mind. you spend time getting to know yourself. You know, there's this great saying that the root of all suffering is our inability to spend time in a room alone with our thoughts. And I think there's a lot of truth to this. I think there's a lot of truth that comes up once you start spending some time alone with your thoughts in a room. And part of these are often not a very nice voice. It's not a very uplifting narrative you have about yourself. I think regardless of who you are, at least the people I've met, even the teachers I've met, the hardest voice in the world is the one we have towards ourselves. And it's a weird relationship because you're not gonna get away from that voice. It will always be there. And if you're a very, very successful person and you've made a lot of money, or you have a high status, you also recognize that once you're alone with your thoughts, things might not be as successful as you'd like them to be. And this first meditation of yours is an introduction to this voice, this harsh voice, but it's also your training buddy, right? It's the person that you have to learn how to grow with. Not necessarily by not listening to them, because, and I say them addressing a voice in your head, obviously, but in personalizing it, sometimes it can be helpful to observe it as just another distraction, right? Just like everything around you in your life already is distracting, right? And sometimes it deserves a little bit of your mental resources, and sometimes it's just chatter in the mind. And this is why I made this video. It's to, at least allow you to meet this chatter in your mind with a friend. And to tell you that whatever this chatter tells you, or whatever it wants you to look towards or be distracted by, for at least this video, I'll be here with you and I'll guide you back to yourself. And are you ready to meet your inner voice? Are you ready to wake up? And if you are, I invite you to sit. Standing is often distracting. I'm sitting here in my office, just to illustrate that meditation does not need some temple. It doesn't need to have anything fancy around you. You can literally awake anywhere. So I invite you to sit. And I invite you to sit with a straight back. And as you sit with a straight back, I invite you to make sure you're comfortable. Make sure that you have scratched the itch that needs to be scratched, that you've muted your phone. And this will just be for a few minutes, so don't worry, I won't take the rest of your day. And then I want you to find your breath. And you do this by, at least I do this by breathing in through the nose and out through your mouth. And do this for a few breaths. Afterwards, you can continue to just breathing through your nose. But to find your breath is also it's a neurological anchor. You basically oxidize your body. A little more, you gain more grounding. And close your eyes. Just breathe slowly. And find in your breath the bottom of your lungs. And also find in it the edge of your breath. And you want to stay here for a few breaths. Don't hurry. Thoughts already have appeared. Thinking about that email, thinking about the kids, thinking about whatever it might be. Just allow it to exist. Return to your breath. Let's breathe deep. Give yourself that real capacity that you carry around in your lungs. That strength, I mean, the whole machine that keeps you going. Right now you're paying attention to it. And you feel perhaps these 8 worldly concerns, right? Perhaps you're not as comfortable as you like to be. Perhaps there's something that you really want to do right now. What you need to do is breathe. That's it. That discomfort you may feel is you becoming familiar with yourself, with this storm within you. And if it's not that stormy, great. Stay with that. Sit a little straighter. Relax your jaw. Stay with that breath. Stay with that anchor within you. And if there is a lot going on, breathe a little deeper. So right. This is the whole purpose of it. Stay with this. This is it. This is life in its most honest form. And you can just sit with it without reaction for a moment. For the last minute here, I'll be quiet. You know the practice. When you're ready, straighten your back again. Get your breath back to a more regular rhythm. And feel free to open your eyes when you're ready. That's it. Meditation is perhaps the most simply yet complicated thing we can do in a life filled with distractions. It is perhaps also the greatest thing you can do in order to allow yourself to arrive at this point in your life. And what does this mean? It means that as the older you get, the faster time will move. Time will not literally sense move faster, but your perception of your circumstances, the things that happens around you, they just become more normal, regular. You don't register them necessarily as unique events. And so life just passes. Until something dramatic happens or you decide to meditate. You know, there is this research on neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to change, that shows that until the age of 28 or so, you have a higher neuroplasticity. Your brain can change easier, and afterwards it just kind of sets in place. We don't change our brain structure that much. We don't learn as many new things. We don't have that deep of a curiosity as we perhaps had before. And you know, for some people that's perfect. Some people are lucky to find a way in their life where this state of mind is enough to live what they will describe as a happy life. But for many others, it's not. We wake up one day and we're curious whether this is it. Is this really what life is? Am I supposed to have arrived at the point, the promised land, the state of mind where I'm supposed to be? And for me at least, I did not get that question personally, but I was confronted by the randomness of life when it comes to suffering. As I said earlier, every life has suffering in it. Some comes later in life, and some comes earlier. Some is not intense, it's a longer period, and some is very intense. And for me, it was intense. And it was at this point I realized that this might have been 800 hours of meditation, 900 hours of meditation, and that I had perhaps not been meditating following the method that was best for me. Because this event here, that it woke me up. It woke me up to the circumstances of how life is in its most honest and also brutal form. And at that point, for those who've been through a traumatic experience, you know, you are awake. Time moves by extremely slow when you are in an intense situation in your life. And for me, it was awakening. It was surprise. It was this is it. Wow, this is what life is, right? This is how intense it can be. There is no escaping such a moment. And at the same time, you know that the only option you have, if you want to make things better, is that you have to act. You have to take responsibility, and you have to just do whatever the hell you can do in order to just make things a little better. Some people find God in this scenario. They find a higher meaning that they can ask for help. For me, it became the practice. of meditation. To remind myself that there are moments that will be intense in your life, Alex. Why not practice for them? And not practice for them as a worst case scenario, right? I'm not meditating for me to be prepared when suffering hits. On the contrary, I'm meditating because I see it as the most natural condition of life. Awaken. And I can awaken in joy. I can be curious in joy as I can be curious in my sadness. And that's why I hope that if there's one thing you take from this, just one thing, it is that meditation is great as a formal practice. I advise you to try and do it. I advise you to try and do it for 20 minutes if you can. And I advise you to try and do it from a beginner's mind perspective. This is a Buddhist idea wherein this thought, awareness of thought, back to the breath, thought, awareness of thought, back to the breath, is the practice of formal meditation. It is that you will never be an expert, and don't let anyone who tells you that they're an expert at meditating, don't let them act as if they are. Because in the end, it's always beginning. We're always beginning to the reality of how our thoughts work, our thought stream. And then the second part is that if you can't do 20 minutes every day, find these moments of awakening, right? Sit with it. Sit with it in the morning. Sit with it as the last thing you do before you go to bed. Find it in a singular breath. Because a singular breath is a moment of meditation. And I'll promise you this, if you do so, if you choose to say that this is a moment of arrival, you can awake. And if you do it more frequently and you combine it with formal practice, you will be the one who is awake when crisis hit, but also the one who awakes to gratitude, to all the good things that are also present in your life. And you'll be a person who's resourceful, present, loving, kind to your spouse, to your children, to your friends, to your business partner, and perhaps most importantly, to yourself. And it starts there, it starts with yourself. I would be extremely thankful if the way that we speak to ourselves, think of ourselves, are with ourselves, is one where we have opportunity to find gratefulness. At least for me, that changed my relationship to myself. And my practice continues. So that was it. And I hope at least this video gave you a little bit of peace of mind and clarity. I hope if you feel like it, you would share it with those who you feel could need it. And I hope to sit with you again. You're more than welcome to visit my little project, Outcome, in a world where we try to outsmart and out-earn and outperform each other. I think the only thing we really can do better is to be calmer than each other. So see you perhaps on the inside. And if not, I wish you a peaceful life. And I'll see you in the next one.